and welcome to Mixology, where we launch each episode mixing up a beverage as we discuss how customer education and customer marketing mix together as scale engines to customer success. I'm Kristine Kukich, and along with Shannon Howard, we're talking about building a team that can thrive. This time, we're having the discussion with a tequila sunrise to celebrate the colors of summer. Here's the ingredients: 2 ounces of tequila, 4 ounces of orange juice, 1/4 ounce grenadine, garnish with an orange slice and or some cherries, and then mix it up, right? Fill a highball glass with ice, pour in the tequila, then the orange juice, top it off with the grenadine, and it should sink to the bottom of the glass to create a layered look. Grab your garnish, sit back, and enjoy the conversation as Shannon and I talk about how to build actions that allow our teams to thrive. So, this time around, we are moving on to an adjacent topic. We spent some time earlier talking about like visions and strategies and the differences and how one becomes the other, and then how to metricize it, right? How to measure against it. My new word, metricize. And so now we really wanted to focus on how do we help our teams be successful as we build out all of this content and growth and whatever is the focus that we're trying to fit into, right? Because it is for the most part kind of a top down with some of our stuff thrown in for kicks kind of arrangement. And that is the starting point, right, Shannon? Right, we have to start with some goals. So go. It's just
Okay, yeah. So how do we help people be successful in a job? And we're saying kind of pre-roll that it really starts at the top, right? With that, what's the vision? What's the mission? What's the strategy? What are our goals? And let's make sure we're aligned there, right? At the company level and at the team level, that we're all on the same page, right? So there's this whole like rowing in the same direction analogy to be
dragon
made.
boat. Dragon boat.
Yeah. If you had a dragon boat and people are going this way and that way, you're basically spinning in a circle, at best staying, in place, and you're not really going anywhere. So we want to make sure people are rowing in the same direction. And we do that by making sure everybody's clear on, what are our goals, business problems to solve, jobs to be done, like where are we headed as a team.
Lila did a really good job of talking about that at the SEDMA conference a few weeks ago, where she articulated precisely how their team goes about pulling down what they think is important for them to do in relation to the goals of the organization as a whole. And I think that plays out very nicely, right? Trying to make sure that as we build out our team goals, of course they align properly with what we're doing to the next level up and to the organization as a whole, but also that we can really figure out what each team member is going to be doing that plays to their strength. Not that we don't want people to stretch, because that's learning is stretching, right? Change is stretching. But also pulling in the strengths of the team to do the things that they can do best, because they can do them quickly, they can do them accurately, and they can do them effectively, all which gives them time to do some of the other things that take more time for whatever reason, because they're more complex, because they are using skills that they don't have yet, and we have to get them upskilled to be able to do them. Whatever the other reasoning is, we can leverage the strengths of the team that we have, or the assistance from the other teams, right? We've talked a lot about cross-functional relationships as well, and this is another place where that can be beneficial, right? As we're building out the strength of our team, maybe the places where we are weak is a place where another team is strong. And if we are leveraging those cross-functional relationships, we get an opportunity, right? We get that opportunity to say, we're weak here. Can you guys prop us up while we upskill, right? While we gain this skill set, can you help us out with that? And in return, when it's our turn to help you, we're all in, right? We're there.
Yeah, I like that. If you think about how do we set people up to be successful, part of it is how do we get them the resources that they need, whether that's training, development, whether that's someone who already knows how to do the thing, who can take that thing off their plate, you know. I think that's part of the resources as well. It's not just tools and technology or budget. It's also what already exists within the organization, or can we give people some time to learn? I think that's something we don't always account for in people's schedule. Yeah. Where we're trying to cram in learning on top of all of our other projects and initiatives.
We used to talk about billable utilization back in the day when it was education services and we were a P&L, and that is less frequent now, right? But
Mhm.
the structure behind that said that there was a 30% window that we
Mhm.
gave to our people to do administrative stuff,
Mhm.
right? And that could be timesheets, expenses, picking out your travel for the next trip, but it also was the ability to grow. So that's the other part of this, right? Is that upskilling part of it, and we gave them enough time throughout the year where they could pick something to build on.
Mhm.
What skill? What maybe it was something that was outside of our traditional task list that they
Mhm.
wanted to do. Maybe it was shadowing somebody from another team.
Mhm.
Maybe it was formal training, right? Maybe they wanted to go to a seminar or attend a class or something that was money related, right? That needed a budget to
Mhm.
work with. And those kinds of things happened in that 30%. And if we're not tracking against the same type of metric, then the challenge is to make sure we're leaving enough time in
Mhm.
in our team's schedules to give them that opportunity to upskill, right?
So let me ask you a question on the upskilling, right? Because there's you said giving people enough time to pick a skill that they want to grow in. How often would you maybe suggest to someone, hey, here's an area where this would be useful to a team, or I think this would help you in your professional career, where it's a little bit, because I've just been thinking about that in terms of upskilling and even like my own professional development budget is where do I want to grow, right? There's so many opportunities, and sometimes it can be really hard to pick one. And sometimes to have that leadership management insight to say, okay, here's where I see maybe there's area of opportunity for growth for you, or based on where I know that you want to go in your career, here's some things that I would recommend for you.
I think it's twofold, right? I think that the first question that you have to ask is, as a team, where do I need my people to be, right? As the manager
Mhm.
of this team, these are the things that we need to be able to do. I currently don't have anyone who could do X. I
Mhm.
think Shannon would be perfect to learn
Mhm.
how to do X. So let me figure out if this is something that we can work on.
Mhm.
And then I would come to you and I would say, this is where I have a gap. I would love for you to be the person that fills that gap.
Mhm.
And then we can figure out how to make it happen. Right. But the second part of it is, where do you want to grow to, you as the employee? Because it is something, my role is to help you grow, not just to help build my function within the organization. But I would love to see the caterpillar become the butterfly, right?
Mhm.
And that opportunity is also to say, where do you want to, what is important for you in terms of growth? And sometimes we're really lucky and those things overlap,
Sure.
and we can then it's really easy to see that that's a path that we need to work on, that we need to make happen,
Mhm.
however that happens. But if they're completely divergent, that's when discussions have to happen. And
Yeah.
communication is key across the board, right? If you and I are meeting on a regular basis and we're talking about the things that are important, then it's going to be easy for me to know truly that that is something I can ask you to do, and you would probably say yes, because
Mhm.
I know that we've been having these conversations and you have expressed an interest in growth that will
Mhm.
help the team, right? You want to help the team grow, so I can make that request and you will probably say yes. If we're
Mhm.
not having those kinds of conversations on a regular basis, it would be hard for me to ask the question because I don't know if you would say yes. And those are the parts that become the challenge, right? When, as we're managing teams, is making sure we're having those conversations about professional and personal growth so that we can give people the right opportunities when they arise. And then I can look at my list and I can say, right, I've got notes on Shannon being able to do this, and Keith is able to do this, and Maria is on this one, and here's where I can, leverage the strengths of someone to kind of just tweak an existing skill to give them something that will help us. And here's where we have to do a deeper dive, right? And that's when we have back to the discussions, right? Do I leverage the team I have, or do I try to hire from outside?
Yeah.
Right. Because then once we have the gaps, but it all comes down to us making sure that we're doing the work with our team so that we can know kind of which direction we need to take on that, because it could go either way. And truthfully, I don't mind as a manager focusing on a skill that isn't something that I can see a quick win for my team on right now. Right. If there's something that you wanted to learn about and figure out, and it's not something that I could see on our roadmap in the next 18 months, that doesn't mean that's not an automatic no. Right? Because anything that gives you an opportunity to see a different perspective brings fresh eyes back to the team, right? It brings new insights back to what we can do as a team. So I can't imagine that I would, it would have to be something very, very outside the norm for me to not enthusiastically support it.
Sure. I feel like most of us will take someone who wants to learn and invest in their learning and development over not. So having those conversations kind of segues into one of my points here on how do we help people be successful? And I'm going to call this bullet rhythms and routines, right? Having cadences of how things work, right? So cadences for professional development conversations, that we have this commitment to consistency around having those conversations in the first place, when we have them, and even how we have them, right? In terms of more structured conversations, we're not leaving them to chance. We're kind of asking people proactively, where do you want to grow? How do you want to grow? Are there any interesting opportunities that you see, any projects that you would be interested in tackling? And I'll, keep my eyes posted on that for you too. Even cadences around, we have cadences on our team around how we plan work to be done, and quarterly planning. We have biweekly, twice weekly, I'll say biweekly in that sense, twice weekly stand-ups. Where we're getting together and we're talking about work that's in progress, work that's been done, work that's coming up. So we're connecting about that regularly as a team. And so I think that those cadences are really helpful because it keeps us consistent, right? We're not leaving progress updates and status updates to chance. We're not accumulating open questions that need to be answered or blockers that need to be removed, right? We're having these regular cadences of communication, meeting, interaction, updates, right? I know in the first of every month, I'm pulling all the data from the previous month, right? And at the first of the new quarter, I'm doing a recap of the quarter, right? These are on my calendar. I just know that that's what I'm going to be doing, right? It's the first of the month. This is what we do. It's every other Thursday, and this is what we do. So you kind of have these expectations, and you can kind of organize your work around those rhythms. And I think that's nice too, to keep people on track, to those rhythms. Give freedom to do it your way, but then we have these kind of checkpoints along the way.
What about vacation? One of the most important parts to that, I think, is if we want people to stay fresh, is making sure that they are taking time off. So how in your rhythm, how do you push or remind people that they need to take a break, that they can't, that they shouldn't?
One of my colleagues just took a break and said to me, if anything important comes up, or if you need my help on anything while I'm out, just shoot me a text. And I was like, I absolutely will not. Enjoy your vacation, bye. This is where a lot of tangential thoughts come to mind is one, there needs to be cross training. If you have one person who knows everything, you have set yourself up to fail. That person can never go on vacation. They can never be sick, never have any kind of accident, right? Like everything's going to go perfectly all the time. And that's just not life. So that's not fair to have only one person who has a skill set, right? Other people should know, like the login to a critical piece of technology and how things work. And documentation is helpful here too. And then also like planning ahead. I'll look for people at their calendars. Some people take a lot of time off. And I've had to tell people in a nice way, like if you take so much time off, like what do you think that says to the business, about how much you're doing around here, right? So if we end up, making way too much use of our like unlimited PTO policy, that's probably not awesome. And so how do we, be wise about spending our vacation time? But then there's other people who don't use their vacation time and I'll like knock, knock, knock. Hi, you've only used like this much of your vacation time. The average person takes this much time. Can I encourage you to take a couple long weekends the last few weeks of the year? Or can I encourage you to, and I think each person is different. Some people really love like a 1 week, 2 week vacation. I'm a big fan of like 4 or 5 days. At that point, I'm just itching to get back to life as usual. But that's, each person individually.
I used to build out a quarter. So like I would go on holiday for a week and I would go somewhere like Hawaii or someplace nice and fun and exciting. And
I like that.
then when I got back, I would plan the next quarter's week off. And that
Okay.
would be a staycation. And I would paint the bedrooms
Yeah.
and what you do yard work or whatever the season is
Mhm.
projects, big house projects. And then every 5 years, we take 2 weeks and go to Europe for our anniversary.
Yeah.
And that was my way to regulate
Yeah.
my brain a little bit so that I knew I was going to take at least 1 week every quarter and try not to do work. And it got easier the
Mhm.
more that cadence became regular
Mhm.
because I knew and everyone else knew that I was going to be gone for a week and it's 5 days and you can survive for 5 days.
Yeah. Okay, so two other thoughts here. One is there's a couple lists floating around the internet, so I'll just encourage people to Google it on how you can maximize your PTO. So whether you have limited or unlimited PTO, there's ways that you can build PTO in around holidays to get several 4 or 5 day stretches while maximizing your PTO. I think that's like a fun idea if you're already going to be taking time off. I'll do that sometimes around holidays and different things where I know I'm going to be traveling to see family. And then the other one is, yeah, plan for your time off, right? So when we're doing our sprint planning, I will ask people, okay, who has PTO coming up? Let's make sure it's like on your calendar and your declining meetings. Let's put it on our own calendars, like as a team, so that we know this person's out and we're not, emailing them. And you can schedule emails in Gmail, friends. So please use that feature. And yeah, we're just asking each other. And then I also ask people to capacity plan in that way. Like, don't commit to 2 weeks of work if you're only in for 5 days. So like use that, for your own time. And then let's also think and be, mindful. Hey guys, just a reminder, I'm going to be out for a week. If you need anything from me and regularly remind people this in your stand-ups or in your cross-functional meetings or whatever, that I'm going to be out, right? I think a lot of people have been surprised by people's vacation time where you go and, there's a critical, I don't know, product launch and you're waiting on something and then a key player's out and nobody knew. So one,
Right.
maybe if you have a big thing, please try not to plan PTO around that. That just is stressful for everybody. But then, yeah, like be proactive in socializing that you have PTO. That I think that's how we encourage people to take and then use their time off, right? To actually make sure that we're not interrupting anybody on vacation.
And then I think that one of the other parts that we have to talk about is as the manager of a team, we're setting them up to grow. We're
Mm-hmm.
setting them up to be able to perform tasks that have meaning to the organization as well
Mm-hmm.
as our team.
Mm-hmm.
How do we insulate our
Mm-hmm.
team so that they can focus on the things that are important and not have to worry about the extraneous noise that organizations can generate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How give thoughts? I know you have some because we've talked about this before.
Yeah. I mean, when you said insulate, I used to, and I don't know that I did this the right way, so I'll be honest with that. The first team that I led, I was like the main point of contact with the CEO. And I kept a lot of stuff from rolling downhill. I am team umbrella, and all of the stuff is coming to me and then off the umbrella, and like never the team shall it hit. That was unfortunate when I left. A lot of people ended up having direct access to this person, and they were like, I had no idea. You're welcome. Saved you from that for as long as I could, and just because there are, right, um there is a finesse to working with certain people, and until you've like kind of been indoctrinated to that, like, it can be
Mhm.
difficult, and it can be like really mentally and emotionally draining to like interact
Yes,
with
very
certain
much
people.
so.
Um, right. And there is that aspect. And I know a lot of people don't like this idea of like politics in business, but it's also the reality of that there's certain times and certain ways that you approach things. So I think if people have an interest in learning that, cool. But then we're kind of like, and again, I think this is where rhythms and routines help is um people should know who I am, and we should be having conversations, and I should, have their ear, their friendship, or their, respect of at some level, so that when something comes up, like it's not, wait, who's this person? And why are they talking to me? And what is this thing that they need? And why are they asking? Right? There's like some respect and relationship built there. So that's the first thing I think is like having those relationships and really being proactive about doing that so that your team isn't knocking on someone's door to get access to a technology or access to a resource, right? A lot of that can be bumped up. And this is where I'll say to people on teams too, I think we often are told, like, do as much as you can yourself. Don't ask your manager for help, like take things off their plate, which is generally speaking great advice. But there are things that I've learned that you have to bump to your manager or to your executive and say, I'm gonna need you to tackle this one. And sometimes I'll just send an email saying big guns needed, and then here's my request. And that's on you now, for them to go and do the socializing and getting the resourcing and buy-in, because they're having other conversations, so to know when to that it's okay to
Well,
ask for
and
that.
to know that, and to also know that our conversation could be noise against a different goal, right?
Sure.
So if I'm not communicating one level up as well as
Mhm.
tackling the rhythm and routine of my team and the levels beneath me,
Mhm.
then if I'm not doing kind of playing that same game 1 and 2 levels above, then the challenge becomes that something I do could put a wrench in something else that I
Sure.
didn't know anything about because
Mhm.
truthfully not my responsibility.
Yeah.
But if my manager or my manager's manager was not aware of some of the things that I'm working on, then those same problems can occur, right?
Mhm.
The issues become problematic for me and my team because we got in the way of something that was a
Sure.
bigger and sometimes more important
Yeah. And
goal or thing to happen.
that's where I think the rhythms, like one of the rhythms I would encourage people to have is that reporting up and making sure that your executive, they don't need to know every little thing that you've done. But I like to make sure that my executive can speak confidently to anything that I'm doing or a team is doing at any given moment, right? Like he shouldn't be completely in the dark about what we're working on, right? So it's that reporting up so he can kind of bring that and also look at all these dynamics. In a past life, I've also any access that I can get to team plans, organizational plans, different teams, goals, strategy decks. Like if you have an internal like wiki or site or something, I try to consume as much as I can from around the organization. So I know some of those dynamics at play of, hey, we're going to be getting this executive over this team. So we may want to pause on that until this, or we're going to end up getting a new operations person. So instead of making a tech stack decision now, why don't we wait 2 weeks until that person comes in? And you can kind of move things around based on what you know is happening in the business, which will lead me to my final point, which was what we were talking about pre-roll around. I was taught to move if you're 80% confident, right? So you don't want to wait to move forward until you have 100% confidence, because you're probably never going to have that, right? We live in a variable world. People don't always reply to your email. And so, and this again, dependent on clear goals, clear vision, clear direction from your company and leadership and over your team. But if you believe, you're aligned to that and you're 80% confident that you are headed in the right direction, you're making a good choice in the absence of a clear go ahead, so.
Right. Because, and we talk all the time about iteration.
Mhm,
If you don't step off the diving board, you will never do it. And
mhm,
you can perfect your form the next time around, and iteration is key. So you have got to just jump in and do it, and then
mhm,
come back and do it again, and as many times as it takes to get it right. And even
sure.
then, time changes. So the iteration is continuous, and I think that in combination with the things that we've talked about is key, right? It's
Mhm,
building your rhythms and your routines. It's
mhm,
making sure if you are the manager, that you're kind of the fulcrum in the
mhm.
right
Ooh, I like that.
in the
Mhm,
organization, so that you're that center point of balance between what goes on one and two levels ahead, above, ahead, whichever one we're using. And then the same with your team, right? That you are protecting them and insulating them from some of that, not all of it, because it's important that they understand the dynamics of the organization as well, but making sure that the hard decisions don't fall on them
mhm,
too badly,
mhm.
and then giving them an opportunity to grow, and all of that back to setting up goals, right?
Mm,
So was that
yeah,
three things, or was that four this time? Did we come up with four? Three, right? Three?
we'll have to go back. We'll ask
Yeah.
Becky how many we had.
Rhythms and
Mhm,
routines is one, making sure that you're building those out.
mhm. Learning and
Fulcrum,
development.
yeah, training and development. That's it. That's all of them, right?
Okay, sure. And then we can sub-bullet from there. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that they fall into the same category. We were talking in a meeting earlier today, we were talking about Legos,
Mhm,
right? And the different sizes, different colors. And what you do is you can build whatever you want with your Legos. And if we
mhm,
take all of these components
mhm,
and figure out how they work for us within this organization, we can build whatever we need to. We have
mhm.
all the pieces. We just have to build the right thing
Sure.
with this, with the pieces that we have. And this is part of it, right? Is just understanding that building our teams is important too. So
Mhm. Yes, that is. I just finished my annual workplace harassment training. I am now certified, completed in this. And one of the things they talk about that I did really appreciate was that building team is part of your job.
mhm.
That successful teams building team is part of your job. It's not separate. It's not like an optional component. It's actually part of the work that we're doing. And I think that's really important to remember too. Like, even if it wasn't a bullet point in the job description, if we build effective teams, we're more effective.
Well, right, it just sets us up to be more effective across the board. That's all there
Hmm.
is to it.
Yeah.
And we did all of that with Tequila Sunrise this time, guys. See you next time.